The Anunnaki are not the fallen angels. And in this video, we are going to analyze the episodes involving Yahweh and the fallen angels. The benai Elohim saw the daughters of the human that they were good-looking, so they took wives for themselves from any whom they chose. Then Yahweh said, "My spirit shall not abide in the human for the eon, in that he too is flesh. So his days will continue 120 years. As for the distinguished, the Nephilim were on earth in those days, and also afterward, when the benai Elohim were coming to the daughters of the human, and they bore them offspring. They were the masterful ones, who were from the eon, mortals of renown." Yahweh is not the only God. Yahweh is one of the Elohim. Yahweh is one of the Anunnaki. Yahweh is one of the Elohim who revealed himself to a specific people, to a small part of the Hebrews. I, Yahweh, am your Elohim, who brought you forth from the land of Egypt, from the house of servants. There shall not come to be other Elohim for you in preference to me. You shall not make for yourself a carving, nor any physical representation of that in the heavens above, or that on the earth beneath, or that in the waters beneath the earth. You shall not bow yourself down to them, nor be made to serve them. For I, Yahweh your Elohim, am a jealous El, visiting the depravity of the fathers on the sons, on the third and on the fourth generation, to those hating me, yet showing benignity to thousands, to those loving me and observing my instructions. The emergence of Yahweh as the sole and omnipotent deity marks a significant evolution in religious thought, a departure from the ancient traditions where a pantheon of gods reigned supreme. This transition was not instantaneous, but evolved over centuries, deeply entwined with the cultural and theological shifts of the people who worshipped him. Long before Yahweh's name echoed through the corridors of time, the Anunnaki held sway over the hearts and minds of the Sumerians, Akkadians, and Assyrians. These ancient civilizations, flourishing in the fertile crescent of Mesopotamia, bore witness to the grandeur of these deities. In contrast, archaeological findings reveal that Yahweh's name emerged much later in history, absent in the earliest human settlements and civilizations. Yahweh's theological journey is marked by a gradual ascent from a regional deity to a universal creator. Initially, the Hebrews, who worshipped Yahweh, practiced henotheism, a devotion to one God while acknowledging the existence of others. This belief system later evolved into monotheism, recognizing Yahweh as the sole divine entity. As we are going to observe this shift in history, it appears to have no justification outside of a matter of faith, and even manipulation, following human interest and the manifestation of power. The concept of the fallen angels can be understood when we observe the Torah, the Book of Enoch, and the Book of Giants. If you enjoy this type of content, do not forget to subscribe to this channel because we are going to study all of this in depth in future videos. In the Book of Enoch, entities known as the Watchers, often referred to as fallen angels, were captivated by human women. This unnatural attraction led to the birth of their progeny, the Nephilim. Characterized as ferocious giants, the Nephilim wreaked havoc on the earth, preying on animals, vegetation, livestock, and even humans. Their voracious appetites extended beyond mere consumption. One account suggests they engaged in sexual abuse of the creatures they encountered. These disturbing incidents were documented by Enoch in his writings. According to the ancient scriptures, the benai Elohim, or the sons of the Elohim, the sons of the gods, descended from the heavens. Feeling attracted to the sons of Adam, they knew them and bore children. Their offspring became known as the Nephilim. Considering that this act had corrupted, the Bible states that the Lord sent the flood to wash out the corruption from the face of the earth. God elected one righteous man known as Noah instructing him to construct a boat to save himself and his family. When we turn our gaze to the original Hebrew Bible in a literal translation, we can observe that the name of God is not there. What appears is the name of Yahweh. Yahweh saw that the evil of humanity was multiplying on earth, and every form of the devisings of its heart was surely evil all the day. Yahweh regretted that he had made humanity on earth, and he grieved in his heart. So Yahweh said, "I shall wipe out humanity that I have created off the surface of the ground, from human unto beast, unto the creeper, and unto the flyer of the heavens. For I regret that I have made them." If we examine Mesopotamian tablets, such as the Epic of Atrahasis and the Epic of Gilgamesh, we come to understand that the name of Yahweh was never present. His name had not yet been pronounced or even discovered in historical and archaeological records. The name of Yahweh is a later imposition in the so-called sacred writings. In Mesopotamian tablets, we would never encounter the name of Yahweh in the context of creating humans. This task is consistently attributed to Ea or Enki and his sister Ninmah. It is necessary to clarify that the name Ningish-Zida is a conclusion drawn by Zechariah Sitchin, using other myths and Mesopotamian tablets as sources. The same conclusion of Sitchin's can be cited when examining the account of the Great Flood. According to Sitchin, the flood is caused by the passage of the planet Nibiru. In the Atrahasis epic, the great deluge that devastated the earth is attributed to the power and fury of Enlil. Initially, the gods relished the reprieve that human labor provided. However, as time passed, human activities grew louder, disrupting the tranquility of the divine beings. Among them, Enlil found himself particularly vexed by the incessant noise emanating from the human world. In an attempt to mitigate this disturbance and reduce the burgeoning human population, Enlil unleashed a series of calamities: a severe drought, followed by widespread disease, and then a crippling famine. Each time these afflictions struck, the people turned in desperation to Enki, the deity responsible for their creation. Enki, compassionate and wise, guided them through these crises, advising them on alleviating their hardships and restoring the earth to a state of balance and fruitfulness. However, Enlil's patience reached its limit. Overwhelmed by the unceasing commotion, he convinced his fellow deities to execute a more drastic plan: a catastrophic flood designed to eradicate humanity entirely. Amidst this looming disaster, Enki felt a profound empathy for Atrahasis, a loyal and sagacious servant. Heeding his compassion, Enki discreetly informed Atrahasis about the impending deluge. He instructed him to construct an ark, a vast vessel that would ensure the survival of Atrahasis and his family. Additionally, Enki advised him to bring pairs of every animal species aboard the ark, ensuring the preservation of life in the face of the impending annihilation. Sitchin interpreted this story using different sources such as the Torah, the Book of Enoch, the Book of Giants, and the Mesopotamian tablets. According to Zechariah Sitchin in the Lost Book of Enki, the Fallen Angels episode can be observed when the Igigi arrived on Earth for the marriage between Marduk and Sarpanit. On this occasion, Shamgaz, one of the leaders, announced that the suffering and loneliness of the Igigi would have an end. They were working on Mars on Lamu Midway Station and desired women for themselves. In the context of the Lost Book of Enki, there were no sons of Adam, but sons of Adapa. There were Adapida women, and Shamgaz convinced the Igigi to take the human women and abduct them. The Igigi took them to Mount Hermon in Lebanon, near the Cedar Mountains. Enlil observed this with much displeasure. He said that they were not welcome on Earth. On that occasion, Marduk spoke. "On Lamu, the situation is unbearable, and survival is not possible. This is a fact that we all know." Enlil said angrily, "They will not stay in the Eden. They cannot stay in the Eden." In the eyes of Enlil, the mission of the Anunnaki on Earth had become perverted. For him, the noisy and strident masses of Earthlings had become an anathema. Enlil said that the Earthlings' declarations were oppressive and that their unions kept him awake at night. Ninmah interceded on behalf of the Earthlings, saying that it would be useful to teach them how to heal themselves so that they could medicate themselves. But Enlil did not respond positively to her pleas. In the lands where Earthlings lived and proliferated, waters did not grow in their sources, and the earth had closed its belly. It was the vegetation that did not sprout. Enki also pleaded to be able to teach fishing and sustenance from the seas, to which Enlil also prohibited by decree. Over time, hunger and diseases increased. Ziusudra, the spokesman for the Earthlings, traveled to Eridu and called for Enki, his lord. He pleaded for help and salvation, but Enki was unable to take any action due to Enlil's decrees. Enlil was filled with anger. Enlil stated that in the beginning, the Earthlings were becoming like them, but now, the Anunnaki were becoming like the Earthlings. When Nibiru was approaching and the flood was coming, Enlil said, "Because of Enki's son Marduk, the Igigi imitated him and married Earthling women. No one knows who is the Lord of Nibiru and to whom the earth belongs. Enough. That's all I have to say. Enough. The abomination must not continue. Let what will happen, happen. And so, let everyone take an oath, and let everyone swear not to intervene in events." And then, the great flood swept the earth. Nevertheless, Ziusudra or Atrahasis or Utnapishtim survived because Enki had a dream with Galzu and decided to save humanity. The Sitchin story, however, would be a little different if we take a look at the 11th tablet of the Epic of Gilgamesh. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, there were no Galzu affecting the dreaming of Ea or Enki, but rather Enki affecting the dream of Utnapishtim. According to the Epic of Gilgamesh in the ancient city of Shuruppak, situated along the Euphrates, gods lived among mortals. The Anunnaki gods, stirred by their will, decided to unleash a catastrophic flood. Anu, the Sky Father, bound them by an oath of secrecy. Enlil, the valiant advisor, Ninurta, the chamberlain, Ennugi, the canal minister, and Enki, the clever prince, were all part of this divine council. Enki, bound by the oath but moved by compassion, covertly warned Utnapishtim during his dream. He advised him to dismantle his house and build a boat, a vessel that would withstand the divine deluge. When the flood came, it was a scene of utter chaos. The mighty Anunnaki gods, usually imposing and fearless, were reduced to fear, cowering like dogs. Ishtar, the goddess known for her sweet voice, wailed in despair, regretting her role in the calamity. After the flood subsided, Enlil, discovering survivors, was enraged. He had intended for the flood to erase humanity completely. He demanded to know how any mortal had survived. Ninurta pointed out that only Enki could have contrived such a plan. Enki then spoke to Enlil, advocating for compassion and suggesting that punishment should fit the crime. He proposed alternatives to a flood for controlling human populations, and revealed that he had only sent a dream to Atrahasis to warn him indirectly. Acknowledging Enki's wisdom, Enlil blessed the survivors, Utnapishtim and his wife. He granted them a status akin to gods, a gesture that marked a significant turn in the relationship between deities and humanity. So, what should be done with all those different pieces of information that have come from various sources? Where does the name of Yahweh appear? And how can Yahweh be related to such narratives if they were much older than his name's appearance in history and archaeology? The origins of Yahweh worship are shrouded in mystery. While some biblical passages suggest ancient roots for Yahweh worship, dating back to the human race's earliest days, others link it to Moses. Scholar Nissim Amzalag posits an alternative view, arguing that Yahweh was originally a Bronze Age god of metallurgy and patron of metallurgists, with connections to the Timna Valley's copper mines. This historical chronology leads us to a time after the flood from a Mesopotamian perspective. In Sitchin's view, it would be the time when the gods Ishkur-Adad and Ninurta, both offspring of Enlil, were teaching humans how to work with metals and furnaces. Yahweh's initial depiction in religious texts suggests Canaanite origins and a subordinate position to the supreme god El. This is evident in Canaanite inscriptions and even in the Bible, where El is portrayed as assigning nations to different gods, including Yahweh to the Israelites. Over time, however, Yahweh evolved from a lesser Canaanite deity to the supreme god of the Israelites, especially post-Babylonian captivity, 6th century BCE. This evolution was not a straightforward journey towards monotheism, but included stages of polytheism and henotheism. Amzalag's metallurgical deity theory draws parallels between Yahweh and other ancient gods of metallurgy, suggesting that Yahweh's significance grew during the Iron Age when copper smelters lost their unique status. Yahweh's character shifted from a deity of transformation to one of conquest and warfare. This transformation is evident in early Israelite literature, where Yahweh is celebrated as a divine warrior. The biblical narrative portrays Yahweh as creating the world and choosing the Israelites as his people. This journey includes significant events like the Great Flood, the story of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, leading to the Israelites' enslavement in Egypt, their liberation by Moses, and the conquest of Canaan under Joshua. The narrative also references the worship of other gods and the gradual transition to Yahweh as the Israelites' sole deity. The political and religious landscape changed dramatically with the split of Solomon's kingdom and the Assyrian and Babylonian invasions, leading to the Babylonian captivity. Post-captivity, Jewish religious understanding underwent significant revisions. The monotheism that characterizes modern Judaism, Christianity, and Islam can be traced back to these revisions, where Yahweh, initially a lesser god in the Canaanite pantheon, emerged as the singular deity of the world's major monotheistic religions. Studying history, archaeology, and theology, we can observe that by the 6th century BCE, the name Yahweh began to be superimposed over earlier narratives. This process culminated in the final version of the canon, where Yahweh is consistently referred to from beginning to end. One of the critical instances that illustrate this evolution is the story of the Tower of Babel in Genesis 11. In this story, Yahweh learns of the developments of a facility, and this idea prompts him to descend and observe the situation. The narrative includes the phrase, "Come, let us go down and confuse their language." This us implies a plurality, originally referring to the Elohim or to the Anunnaki, establishing a connection between Yahweh and the Anunnaki story found in ancient Mesopotamian texts. Yahweh often identifies himself as an Elohim, suggesting that he is one of many such entities. This is evident when Yahweh instructs Moses to tell his people that the powerful one, Yahweh, the powerful one of your ancestors, has sent you. The pluralistic nature of Yahweh's identity is further reinforced in the Ten Commandments, where Yahweh demands exclusive worship, forbidding the veneration of other Elohim or of Anunnaki. Mauro Biglino explains that in Exodus chapter 3, Moses questions the identity of God. The traditional translation of this passage suggests Moses saying, "The God of your father has sent me to you," and anticipating the Israelites' question about God's name. This inquiry about God's name implies that there might be multiple deities, since a unique, unequivocal God would not require a name for identification. In the Hebrew text, Moses addresses the Elohim or the gods in plural, indicating a specific deity rather than a general reference. This distinction becomes crucial when Moses asks for a name to convey to the Israelites. God's response, Aye Asher Aya, translated as I am who I am, has been subject to various interpretations over centuries, ranging from I will be who I will be to I will be what I was. These diverse translations reflect the exegete's attempts to comprehend and convey the essence of this divine name. Mauro Biglino argues that the response, I am what I am, could be seen as a dismissal, indicating that the specific identity or name of this entity is irrelevant to the task at hand. When Moses posed this question, the Hebrew language may not have existed in its current form, leading to speculation about the language used, possibly Egyptian or another ancient tongue. The name's pronunciation remains unknown, partly because it was written centuries later, originally only with consonants, and vowels were added much later, between the 6th and 9th centuries AD. The true nature and meaning of Yahweh, however, remains somewhat enigmatic. Moses, despite being a central figure in communicating Yahweh's will, never actually sees Yahweh but only hears his voice and sees a manifestation in the form of fire. Thus, Moses, and by extension the followers, do not fully grasp who or what Yahweh is, nor the true meaning of the name, as it was foreign to them. By the end of the biblical writing period, Yahweh had become the holy name for the deity, but its origins and full implications were still not entirely clear. For Zecharia Sitchin, Yahweh is the creator of all himself. Yahweh himself created the Elohim or the Anunnaki. For me, this is the major mistake of Sitchin. In the future, we are going to give him the necessary space to explain his conclusions that led him to understand that Yahweh is the creator of all. Then you can decide for yourself whether you believe him or not. Despite all those controversies, our days are filled with doubts and misinterpretations regarding the name of a deity that we simply don't understand its true meaning, and we cannot even comprehend who it is. Besides, we have to understand that the name of Yahweh has been written above the names of all other entities that interacted with humans long before the appearance of this name. In any way and in any direction that we could look, we are just not and never going to understand what Yahweh really means. But one thing is clear: whoever or whatever wrote the Book of Enoch, the Book of Giants, and the Torah maybe did not know the past where the names of Anu, Enki, Enlil, Ninharsag, Ninurta, Marduk, among many other Anunnaki were. Probably in the time that the angels fell and corrupted the earth, creating the Nephilim, it was the time of the Anunnaki and earthlings on earth, and not exactly a time when the name of Yahweh could be known. We can speculate that maybe his presence could be felt under another name or even other names. In creating humans and trying to wipe them out of earth and deciding to preserve a righteous man, we can observe both Enki and Enlil in a place where the Torah cites only Yahweh. The term Elohim is often seen as a plural form of God, suggesting a group of deities rather than a singular entity. Similarly, Anunnaki refers to a collection of divine beings. Both Elohim and Anunnaki are thus understood as terms for groups of powerful divine entities at the top of their respective mythological hierarchies. The term Igigi refers to the junior gods or the lesser gods in Mesopotamian mythology, paralleling the benai Elohim or the sons of God from Hebrew mythology. In Sitchin's interpretation, the Igigi are the inhabitants of Nibiru who came to Earth to work and were designated to work in gold mining. Afterward, they were sent to Lamu or Mars to work in the Midway Station. These Igigi may be the sons of God, the benai Elohim, and they could be the same watchers from the Book of Enoch who descended to Earth and mated with human women, creating the Nephilim. The Nephilim, meaning giants or the fallen, are described as the offspring of these divine beings and human women. The term Nephilim originates from ancient Hebrew, related to the verb nafal, meaning to fall or descend. These beings are thus seen as hybrids between divine beings and humans, notable for their extraordinary characteristics such as size and strength, and their descent from fallen angels. Interestingly, the benai Elohim could be seen as Anunnaki offspring born on Earth, as suggested by Zecharia Sitchin's interpretations in the Lost Book of Enki, with Nanar Sin being the first of these. However, it's important to differentiate among these terms. Anunnaki and Elohim both represent groups of higher-ranking divine beings. Igigi aligns with benai Elohim and Watchers as lesser gods, and Nephilim are the progeny of the Igigi or benai Elohim with human women. This distinction is crucial for an accurate understanding of these mythological concepts. The pre-flood era in the Book of Genesis introduces Enoch as Jared's son and Methuselah's father. Enoch's life, spanning 365 years, is briefly documented. A significant aspect of his existence is his departure from Earth, as narrated in the scriptural texts. Genesis 5:24, in its literal translation, states, "While Enoch was walking with the one, Elohim, then he was not found, for Elohim took him away." This passage highlights the unique nature of Enoch's journey and his profound connection with the divine entities, the Elohim or the Anunnaki. His disappearance is portrayed as a direct consequence of this divine association, marking a mysterious and significant event in the narrative. In the Book of Jubilees, it is recounted that Enoch was the earliest human born on our planet to master the art of writing, accumulating knowledge and wisdom. He meticulously documented the celestial signs, organizing them by months in a written work. This compilation served as a guide for humanity to discern the changing seasons based on the distinct months. During his 12th Jubilee, Enoch entered into matrimony with Edney, named My Eden, the offspring of Dan-El. This union brought forth Methuselah, their son. Subsequently, Enoch devoted 6 Jubilees in the company of God's angels. These celestial beings unveiled to him the mysteries of both earth and the heavens. Enoch, in turn, committed these revelations to writing, ensuring a detailed record of all he had learned. Enoch's role was pivotal during these turbulent times, as suggested by the Book of Jubilees. He stood as a witness against the Watchers, the divine beings who had sinned with mortal women. His testimony was against all of them. The story begins as the children of men populate the earth, giving birth to beautiful daughters. The angels, celestial beings from the heavens, become infatuated with these mortal women. They convene and, led by Semjaza, decide to take wives from among humans to beget children, an act that transgresses divine boundaries. Semjaza, aware of the gravity of this rebellion, expresses his fear of bearing the sin alone, but his fellow angels vow to share the responsibility, swearing an oath on Mount Hermon. 200 angels descend to earth, and each chooses a wife. Their union results in the birth of giants, enormous beings who impose a significant burden on humanity, consuming resources and causing chaos. The angels not only intermarry with humans, but also teach them various forbidden arts and knowledge. This includes enchantments, the cutting of roots, the use of plants, and the arts of war. Azazel, one of these angels, instructs humanity in making weapons and introduces them to various metals, ornaments, and cosmetics, further leading them away from righteousness. The giants, the offspring of these unions, become a destructive force, turning against humanity and even nature itself, sinning against birds, beasts, and the earth. The corruption becomes so widespread that the earth itself cries out against these lawless ones. In response to this chaos, 4 archangels, Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel, observe the earth from heaven. They witness the bloodshed and lawlessness and discuss the cries of the earth, which reach the gates of heaven. Disturbed by these events, they appeal to the Most High, the supreme divine authority. They describe the dire situation on earth highlighting the roles of Azazel and Samlazaz in teaching unrighteousness and leading the celestial rebellion. The Most High, acknowledging the archangel's concerns, takes decisive action. Uriel is sent to Noah, warning him of the impending deluge meant to cleanse the earth and instructing him on survival. Raphael receives the task of binding Azazel, casting him into darkness as punishment for his transgressions and healing the earth corrupted by the angels. Gabriel is ordered to incite conflict among the giants, ensuring their mutual destruction. Finally, Michael is commanded to bind Samlazaz and his followers, imprisoning them in the valleys of the earth for 70 generations until the day of their judgment. Binding together the conclusions that we can observe from the book of Enoch, Genesis, and Exodus from Torah, as well as the ancient Mesopotamian tablets, it becomes clear to me that someone has somehow reinterpreted those stories, attempting to attribute some kind of spiritual divinity to the name of Yahweh. Today, our popular Bibles hide the truth behind the name of the Lord. Reading the common Bibles and only the established canon, we will never understand who the Elohim are, who the Nephilim are, who the Anunnaki are, and what and where exactly the divine is. Nevertheless, I have to warn you, from the first civilization in human history, the Mesopotamians, who vividly describe the creation of man, as well as the first settlements and the first civilized way of life, an answer comes. Under the name of An for the Sumerians and Anu for the Akkadians lies the heavens itself. If you liked the video, please hit the like button and share it with your friends and family who might be interested in the topic. Consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming videos. See you in the next video.